Definitely not what Donald Trump said.
It's that time. Haha. Thank you, CCTV. Thank you, Susan Fleshman. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, the CCTV staff, for allowing Brother R.A. to go ahead and have his say each and every day. And how about if we go there and say, voila? Okay. And last week we ended with Noam Chomsky, propaganda and control of the public mind. Yeah. Okay. And I wish to say, how do I show a younger man how to love his mother, but by showing how I love my mother? Now, can I find me a woman? Which one is this? Yeah, can I find a woman that looks like mommy there? Yeah, that's my sister, and that's my mommy, older with more melanin in her skin. Or is that just because she has a black and white picture and just a thought. So, okay, we don't have much time. We will get into so much more. Let's go ahead and read this real quick. June 19th, today, 1963. Yeah, we'll go back to this shot. Y'all can, you remember that? The water hose, but all right. 1963, NAACP Field Secretary and World War Veteran II, World War II veteran Medgar Evers. Medgar Evers was assassinated by white supremacists. Is buried in National Cemetery with full military honors as thousands mourn. Okay. Let's just jump right into this. I'm going to go ahead and do it. That's why I'm recording. Make sure I am recording. Yeah. YouTube may snatch this down, and I'm just going to go ahead and air right here on Brother R.A. I tried to get the permission, but I'm just going to go ahead and do what I got to do to raise consciousness. Maybe I'm trying too hard or something, but I wish to at least wake up somebody. Wake up everybody, no more sleeping in bed, right? Well, here we go. This is Raoul Peck, the producer. I'm going into the special features of this show, and then we'll show some of I Am Not Your Negro. Okay, I'm Not Your Negro. And after watching Amistad and Manchurian Candidate, yeah, just, after last week's show of propaganda and control of the public mind, Noam Chomsky.
First of all, I met Baldwin as a writer a long time ago. The work of Baldwin influenced my whole life, influenced my work. So it was a matter of time when I would try to actually do a film either about him or with him. And a little bit more than 10 years ago, I felt that the time was right. It was, I felt that the discussion was not moving. I felt like we were going toward more problems than solutions. I felt that we were missing an important voice, and there were no replacement for all those leaders that we had in the 60s, the 70s. And I knew how important Baldwin's voice was and how important his writing is. So I went just, innocently toward, this book again, and I tried to get the rights, and the response was positive very, very quickly. And when I contacted the estate, and I met his younger sister, Gloria Carifa-Smart, who basically adopted me. She have seen my film, she have seen Lumumba. Lumumba was an important film for her and her life, because she knew Africa. She went to Africa on Baldwin's first trip as a 20-year-old young girl, helping him, carrying a photo camera, and she met her first husband in Sierra Leone during that trip. And so when I came and asked for the rights, she basically agreed to everything, and which is unprecedented. That's what makes this film particular, because as a filmmaker you never have that kind of right, unless you're the family and you decide to make a film about your father. That's different, but to have all access to everything, published and unpublished, is really unprecedented. So, and then I have that responsibility, and I knew that I had to come back with something strong. It took another 4 years before I knew how to deal with this project. I played around with doing a narrative, and then a documentary, then a mix of documentary and narrative. I work with some writers, I work with a playwright as well, and all this was not satisfying, and I didn't feel that it was original. I don't feel that it was particular. And then one day Gloria gave me those pages about Remember This House, this project that was never written. And the very idea of putting together Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, and Martin Luther King, that's typical Baldwin. The way he connect events, he connect people, he connect history and politics, and suddenly I could see a book, I could see a story, and the fact that he saw how Malcolm and Martin got closer and closer together, and the relationship between those two people, and then Medgar's as well, and their age, the fact that they all died very young, and so the story was there for me, and the rest was how to get the rest of his body of work in the film. I knew somehow I could reconstruct that, that book that he wanted to write. It's a mixture of several things. One is that at a very early age, he had to learn to think. He has to learn as an adult to think. He was a preacher at 14, and he understood a lot of things very early on. He had to grow up very quickly. He had to take care of his old brothers and sisters. He had to confront a father that was, basically abusive as well, very severe. And he met great people along his path. Somebody like Beaufort, which was a painter in the village, he met at a very young age, who was sort of not only a partner for him, but more a mentor. There is a very interesting quote when he said that Beaufort, show him some water on the streets, and he asked him, what do you see, Jimmy? And he said, well, there's water in the street, a puddle. I said, no, look again. And then he started watching, and it was, yes, he saw the sky, he saw clouds, he saw the movement of the water. And so that was for him the beginning of his artistic education, and he begins to understand that there was much more than reality, there was much more than just being a nigger, or that he was a man, that he was, so this was part of his upbringing, and was part of his later his writing. And he understood, he invented a language. Toni Morrison says that of Baldwin. He invented a language, a way to talk, a rhythm in his talking. Nobody else before him had done that. And that's why Baldwin's words can be understood by somebody who never went to college, but also can be appreciated by somebody who is a scholar. He touches all those different people. He could spend a lot of time with simple people on the streets, but he could be incredible eloquent in front of any scholar, any group of intellectual. And that's a rare, quality to him. And then the last thing I would say about his writing is that he's one of the rare authors where I tend to underline stuff that I like a lot in the book. And when you start doing it in the Baldwin book, the essays, the whole book is underlined, because those are perfect quotes, line after line. He has a very precise way to describe something, and with all the different layers, and in a very poetic way, in a very political way. And it's just hit you, on one side, and once you think you understood the sentence, and he would hit you with the second part of the sentence and go deeper with you. So it's rare that an author can do that to you.
Okay, so let's just go into the movie itself.
A positive answer from
Yeah, we're gonna do that again, and here, y'all take a look at that, and I'm gonna try to pull my act together and get this out here. This information about I Am Not Your Negro by James Baldwin, produced by Raoul Peck. And just to let you know, no, we didn't do this week. We don't need to do it all the time, but we do need to share this kind of knowledge and information with you. Race mixing is communism. This is just prior to play the movie. Quality images. I have to let that air. Thank you. Let's go right on into the movie now with all the credits. Yeah, this is who put it out, and so on and so forth. Copyright infringement, possibly. Maybe we'll just let it slide so that people can get some knowledge and information about how to raise your self-esteem, self-respect. And what did I say last week? Propaganda and control of the public mind. Noam Chomsky. And did you get anything from the information last week?
Mr. Bolden, I'm sure you still meet the remark that, what are the Negroes, why aren't they optimistic? They say, but it's getting so much better. There are Negro mayors, there's Negroes in all of sports, there are Negroes in politics, they're even accorded the ultimate accolade of being in television commercials now. And, I'm glad you're smiling. Is it at once getting much better and still hopeless?
Well, I don't think there's much hope for it, to tell you the truth. As long as people are using this peculiar language. It's not a question of what happens to the Negro here, to the black man here. That's a very vivid question for me, But the real question is what's going to happen to this country. I have to repeat that.
You damn right I got the blues, from my head down to my shoes. You damn right I got the blues, from my head down to my shoes. I can't win, 'cause I don't have a thing to lose. I stopped by my daughter's house, and I just want to use the phone. I stopped by my daughter's house, I just want to use the phone.
To J. Acton, Spartan Literary Agency, June 30th, 1979. My dear Jay, I'll confess to you that I am writing the enclosed proposal in a somewhat divided frame of mind. The summer has scarcely begun, and I feel already that it's almost over. And I will be 55. Yes, 55 in a month. I am about to undertake the journey. And this is a journey, to tell you the truth, which I always knew that I would have to make, but had hoped, perhaps, and certainly hadn't hoped, not to have to make so soon. I am saying that a journey is called that because you cannot know what you will discover on the journey, what you will do with what you find, or what you find will do to you.
We no longer have a right to be free, we have a duty to be free. Yeah. So when you sit down on the bus and you sit down in the front or you sit down by a white person, you're sitting down because you have a duty to sit down, not merely because you have a right.
The time of these lives and deaths from a public point of view is 1955, when we first heard of Martin, to 1968, when he was murdered. Medgar was murdered in the summer of 1963. Malcolm was murdered in 1965.
Yeah, take my hand, precious Lord, lead me on, let me stand. I'm tired, I'm leaving, I'm old.
The three men, Medgar, Malcolm, and Martin, were very different men. Consider that Martin was only 26 in 1955. He took on his shoulders the weight of the crimes and the lies and the hope of a nation. I want these three lives to bang against and reveal each other, as in truth they did, and use their dreadful journey as a means of instructing the people whom they loved so much, who betrayed them, and for whom they gave their lives.
The moment a Negro child walks into the school, every decent, self-respecting, loving parent should take his white child out of that parochial school.
and he forgives adultery. But he is very angry and he actually curses all who do integrate.
That's when I saw the photograph. On every newspaper kiosk on that wide tree-shaped boulevard in Paris were photographs of 15-year-old Dorothy Counts being reviled and spat upon by the mob as she was making her way to school in Charlotte, North Carolina. There was unutterable pride, tension, and anguish in that girl's face as she approached the halls of learning with history jeering at her back. It made me furious. It filled me with both hatred and pity, and it made me ashamed. Some one of us should have been there with her. But it was on that bright afternoon that I knew I was leaving France. I could simply no longer sit around Paris discussing the Algerian and the Black American problem. Everybody else was paying their dues, and it was time I went home and paid mine.
If you was white, you'd be alright. If you was brown, you'd stick around. But as you black, oh brother, get back, get back, get back. They went to employment office, the number I got in line. They called everybody's number, but they never did call mine. They said if you was white, you'd be alright. If you was brown, stick around. But as you black, oh brother.
I had at last come home. If there was in this some illusion, there was also much truth. In the years in Paris, I had never been homesick for anything American. Neither waffles, ice cream, hot dogs, baseball, majorettes, movies, nor the Empire State Building, nor Coney Island, nor the Statue of Liberty, nor the Daily News, nor Times Square. All of these things had passed out of me. They might never have existed. And it made absolutely no difference to me if I never saw them again. But I missed my brothers and sisters and my mother. They made a difference. I wanted to be able to see them and to see their children. I hoped that they wouldn't forget me. I missed Harlem Sunday mornings and fried chicken and biscuits. I missed the music. I missed the style. That style possessed by no other people in the world. I missed the way the dark face closes, the way dark eyes watch, and the way when a dark face opens, a light seems to go everywhere. I missed, in short, my connections. Missed the life which had produced me and nourished me and paid for me. Now, though I was a stranger, I was home. I'm fascinated by the movement on and off the screen. I'm about 7. I'm with my mother or my aunt. The movie is Dance, Fools Dance. I was aware that Joan Crawford was a white lady. Yet, I remember being sent to the store sometime later, and a colored woman who, to me, looked exactly like Joan Crawford, was buying something. She was incredibly beautiful. She looked down at me with so beautiful a smile that I was not even embarrassed. which was rare for me. By this time, I had been taken in hand by a young white school teacher named Bill Miller, a beautiful woman, very important to me. She gave me books to read and talked to me about the books and about the world, about Ethiopia and Italy and the German Third Reich, and took me to see plays and films to which no one else would have dreamed of taking a 10-year-old boy. It is certainly because of Bill Miller, who arrived in my terrifying life so soon, that I never really managed to hate white people. Though God knows, I have often wished to murder more than one or two. Therefore, I began to suspect that white people did not act as they did because they were white, but for some other reason. I was a child, of course, and therefore unsophisticated. I took Bill Miller as she was, or as she appeared to be to me. She too, anyway, was treated like a nigger, especially by the cops, and she had no love for landlords.
Richard, can't get him up. Richard, can't get him up. Richard, can't get him up. Lazy Richard can't get him up. Richard.
In these days, no one resembling my father has yet made an appearance on the American cinema scene.
Can't get him up. We'll try to get him on the phone. I was laying down dreaming.
No, it's not entirely true. There were, for example, Stephen Fetchit and Willie Best and Mantan Moreland, all of whom, rightly or wrongly, I loathed. It seemed to me that they lied about the world I knew and debased it, and certainly I did not know anybody like them, as far as I could tell. For it is also possible that their comic bug-eyed terror contained the truth concerning a terror by which I hoped never to be engulfed. Yet, I had no reservations at all concerning the terror of the black janitor and They Won't Forget. I think that it was a black actor named Clinton Rosemond who played this part, and he looked a little like my father.
I didn't do it.
He is terrified because a young white girl in this small southern town has been raped and murdered, and her body has been found on the premises of which he is the janitor.
Morning, Tom. Tom?
The role of the janitor is small, yet the man's face bangs in my memory until today.
Nobody says you have, Tom, but they might.
The film's icy brutality both scared me and strengthened me. Because Uncle Tom refuses to take vengeance in his own hands, he was not a hero for me. Heroes, as far as I could see, were white, and not merely because of the movies, but because of the land in which I lived, of which movies were simply a reflection. I despised and feared those heroes because they did take vengeance into their own hands. They thought vengeance was theirs to take. And yes, I understood that. My countrymen were my enemy. I suspect that all these stories are designed to reassure us that no crime was committed. We've made a legend out of a massacre.
leaving aside all the physical facts which one can quote, leaving aside rape or murder, leaving aside the bloody catalog of oppression, which we are in one way too familiar with already. What this does to the subjugated is to destroy his sense of reality. This means, in the case of an American Negro, born in that glittering republic, and in the moment you are born, since you don't know any better, every stick and stone and every face is white, and since you have not yet seen a mirror, you suppose that you are too. It comes as a great shock, around the age of 5 or 6 or 7, to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace, and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you.
My dear Jay, you must, it is to be hoped, be as curious as I am concerning the execution of this book project. I know how to do it technically. It is a matter of research and journeys. And with you or without you, I will do it anyway. I begin in September when I go on the road. The road means my return to the South. It means briefly, for example, seeing Merle Evers and the children, those children who are children no longer. It means going back to Atlanta, to Selma, to Birmingham. It means seeing Coretta Scott King and Martin's children. I know that Martin's daughter, whose name I don't remember, and Malcolm's oldest daughter, whose name is Attila, are both in the theater, and apparently are friends. It means seeing Betty Shabazz, Malcolm's widow, and the 5 younger children. It means exposing myself as one of the witnesses to the lives and deaths of their famous fathers. And it means much, much more than that. A clod of witnesses, as old St. Paul once put it. I first met Malcolm X. I saw Malcolm before I met him. I was giving a lecture somewhere in New York. Malcolm was sitting in the first row of the hall, bending forward at such an angle that his long arms nearly caressed the ankles of his long legs, staring up at me. I very nearly panicked. I knew Malcolm only by legend, and this legend, since I was a Harlem street boy, I was sufficiently astute to distrust. Malcolm might be the torch that white people claim he was, though, in general, white America's evaluations of these matters would be laughable and even pathetic, did not these evaluations have such wicked results. On the other hand, Malcolm had no reason to trust me either, and so I stumbled through my lecture, with Malcolm never taking his eyes from my face.
There's no sun up in the sky, stormy weather, since my man and I together keeps raining all the time.
As a member of the NAACP, Medgar was investigating the murder of a black man, which had occurred months before, had shown me letters from black people asking him to do this, and he had asked me to come with him.
Raise them, get yourself together, drive that funky soul.
I was terribly frightened, but perhaps that field trip will help us define what I mean by the word witness.
Drive that funky soul.
I was to discover that the line which separates a witness from an actor is a very thin line indeed. Nevertheless, the line is real. I was not, for example, a black Muslim, in the same way, though for different reasons, that I never became a Black Panther. because I did not believe that all white people were devils, and I did not want young black people to believe that. I was not a member of any Christian congregation because I knew that they had not heard and did not live by the commandment, love one another as I love you. And I was not a member of the NAACP because in the North, where I grew up, the NAACP was fatally entangled with black class distinctions or illusions of the same, which repelled a shoeshine boy like me. I did not have to deal with the criminal state of Mississippi hour by hour and day by day, to say nothing of night after night. I did not have to sweat cold sweat after decisions involving hundreds of thousands of lives. I was not responsible for raising money or deciding how to use it. I was not responsible for strategy controlling prayer meetings, marches, petitions, voting registration drives. I saw the sheriffs, the deputies, the stormtroopers more or less in passing. I was never in town to stay. This was sometimes hard on my morale, but I had to accept as time wore on that part of my responsibility as a witness was to move as largely and as freely as possible, to write the story and to get it out.
We should all be concerned with but one goal, the eradication of crime. The Federal Bureau of Investigation is as close to you as your nearest telephone. It seeks to be your protector in all matters within its jurisdiction. It belongs to you.
Am I in the security index? Ha 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 ha.
White people are astounded by Birmingham. Black people aren't. White people are endlessly demanding to be reassured that Birmingham is really on Mars. They don't want to believe, still less to act on the belief that what is happening in Birmingham is happening all over the country. They don't want to realize that there is not one step morally or actually between Birmingham and Los Angeles.
My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Make somebody want to say, crack a redneck motherfucker, suck my ass. But that's a little too harsh. Drop your chi
we've invited three men on the forefront of the Negro struggle to sit down and talk with us in front of the television camera. Each of these men, through his actions and his words, but with vastly different manner and means, is a spokesman for some segment of the Negro people today.
Black people in this country have been the victims of violence at the hands of the white man for 400 years. And following the ignorant Negro preachers, we have thought that it was godlike to turn the other cheek to the brute that was brutalizing us.
Malcolm X, one of the most articulate exponents of the black Muslim philosophy, has said of your movement and your philosophy that it plays into the hands of the white oppressors, that they are happy to hear you talk about love for the oppressor because this disarms the Negro and fits into the stereotype of the Negro as a meek, turning the other cheek sort of creature. Would you care to comment on Mr. X's belief?
Well, I don't think of love as, in this context, as emotional bosh. But I think of love as something strong and that organizes itself into powerful, direct action. This is what I try to teach in the struggle in the South, that we are not engaged in a struggle that means we sit down and do nothing. That there's a great deal of difference between non-resistance to evil and non-violent resistance.
Martin Luther King is just a 20th century or modern Uncle Tom or a religious Uncle Tom who is doing the same thing today to keep Negroes defenseless in the face of attack that Uncle Tom did on the plantation to keep those Negroes defenseless in the face of the attack of the Klan in that day.
I think, though, that we can be sure that the vast majority of Negroes who engage in the demonstrations and who understand the nonviolent philosophy will be able to face dogs and all of the other brutal methods that are used without retaliating with violence, because they understand that one of the first principles of nonviolence is a willingness to be the recipient of violence while never inflicting violence upon another.
As concerns Malcolm and Martin, I watched two men coming from unimaginably different backgrounds, whose positions originally were poles apart, driven closer and closer together. By the time each died, their positions had become virtually the same position. It can be said indeed that Martin picked up Malcolm's burden, articulated the vision which Malcolm had begun to see and for which he paid with his life, and that Malcolm was one of the people Martin saw on the mountaintop. Medgar was too young to have seen this happen, though he hoped for it and would not have been surprised. But Medgar was murdered first. I was older than Medgar, Malcolm, and Martin. I was raised to believe that the eldest was supposed to be a model for the younger, and was, of course, expected to die first. Not one of these three lived to be 40.
Damn! Oh, damn!
We need an organization that no one downtown loves. We need one that's ready and willing to take action. Any kind of action, by any means necessary.
When Malcolm talks, or one of the ministers talk, they articulate for all the Negro people who hear them, who listen to them. They articulate their suffering. The suffering which has been in this country so long denied. That's Malcolm's great authority over any of his audiences. He corroborates their reality. He tells them that they really exist, you know?
What have I got to lose? It's still going on today. Damn. Media literacy. It all comes down to the type of information that you receive. Do you believe in yourself? That's where love comes in first. You have to dig deep within yourself, individual, inwardly divided. No, we have to come together within ourselves. Damn. Okay.
And there are days, this is one of them, when you wonder what your role is in this country and what your future is in it. How precisely you're going to reconcile yourself to your situation here, and how you're going to communicate to the vast, heedless, unthinking, cruel white majority that you are here. I'm terrified at the moral apathy, the death of the heart, which is happening in my country. These people have deluded themselves for so long that they really don't think I'm human. I had basis on their conduct, not on what they say. And this means that they have become, in themselves, moral monsters.
Moral monsters. Damn. Is that what I want for the wife of my wife, the mother of my children? Have I been that brainwashed? Because of the media? Oh, my mother's too dark-skinned. I want someone...
Most of the white Americans I've ever encountered, really, had a Negro friend or a Negro maid or somebody in high school. But they never, or rarely, but after school was over or whatever, came to my kitchen. We were segregated from the schoolhouse door. Therefore, he doesn't know. He really does not know what it was like for me to leave my house, leave the school and go back to Harlem. He doesn't know how Negroes live. And it comes as a great surprise to the Kennedy brothers and to everybody else in the country. I'm certain, again, that like most Latin Americans I have encountered, they have I'm sure they have nothing whatever against Negroes. That's really not the question. The question is really a kind of apathy and ignorance, which is a price to be paid for segregation. That's what segregation means. That you don't know what's happening on the other side of the world because you don't want to know.
I was, in some way, in those years, without entirely realizing it, the great black hope of the great white father. I was not a racist, or so I thought. Malcolm was a racist, or so they thought. In fact, we were simply trapped in the same situation.
Well, you tell that to my boy tonight when you put him to sleep on the living room couch. And you tell it to him in the morning when his mother goes out of here to take care of somebody else's kids. Tell it to me. When we want some curtains or some drapes and you sneak out of here and go work in somebody's kitchen. All I want is to make a future for this family. All I want is to be able to stand in front of my boy like my father never was able to do to me.
I must sketch now the famous Bobby Kennedy meeting. Lorraine Hansberry would not be very much younger than I am now if she were alive. At the time of the Bobby Kennedy meeting, she was 33. That was one of the very last times I saw her on her feet, and she died at the age of 34. I miss her so much. People forget how young everybody was. Bobby Kennedy, for another quite different example, was 38. We wanted him to tell his brother, the president, to personally escort to school on that day or the day after a small black girl already scheduled to enter Deep South school. That way, we said, it will be clear that whoever spits on that child will be spitting on the nation. He didn't understand this either. It would be, he said, a meaningless moral gesture. We would like, said Lorraine, from you a moral commitment. He looked insulted, seemed to feel that he'd been wasting his time. Well, Lorraine sat still, watching all the while. She looked at Bobby Kennedy, who perhaps for the first time looked at her. But I'm very worried, she said, about the state of the civilization which produced that photograph of the white cop standing on that Negro woman's neck in Birmingham. Then she smiled, and I am glad that she was not smiling at me. Goodbye, Mr. Attorney General, she said, and turned and walked out of the room. And then we heard the thunder. The very last time I saw Medgar Evers, he stopped at his house on the way to the airport so I could autograph my books for him, his wife, and children. I remember Merle Evers standing outside, smiling, and we waved. And Medgar drove to the airport and put me on the plane. Months later, I was in Puerto Rico, working on my play. Lucienne and I had spent a day or so wandering around the island, and now we were driving home. It was a wonderful, bright, sunny day. Top of the car was down. We were laughing, talking, and the radio was playing. Then the music stopped, and the voice announced that Medgar Evers had been shot to death in the carport of his home, and his wife and children had seen the big man fall.
Evers was buried from the bullet he caught. They lowered him down as a king. But when the shadowy sun sets on the one that fires the gun, he'll be by his grave on the stone that remains, carved next to his name is epitaph claim. Only the born in their day.
The blue sky seemed to descend like a blanket, and I couldn't say anything. I couldn't cry. I just remembered his face, a bright, blunt, handsome face, and his weariness, which he wore like his skin, and the way he said road for road. And his telling me how the tatters of clothes from a lynched body hung, flapping in the tree for days, and how he had to pass that tree every day.
And I'm living this life every day. I can't be mad as Father Nature at our story. I have to learn to be lighter, drop my energies, and communicate with you more non-verbally with a lighter face. I'm finding that hard to do, to keep a smile, or but my face is always, you have to lighten my load. Live in the abstract, not on the denotative, not on the connotative, but in the abstract, and smile and smirk, or be content with my individual self not being divided, but an undivided individual. Learning to be one, that straight line. I, that straight line.